Ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha. I've been hearing a fair amount recently about IGN's review of Prey. Apparently, the reviewer rated the game a 4 initially, which has fanboys of the game up in arms, and also seems to be par for the course whenever a large reviewer posts a review outside of the accepted norm and runs the risk of lowering the Metacritic rating, because apparently that's the worst thing in the world now. Now, we've seen so many instances of this sort of thing happening in recent days that I thought it best to delay my own review of Prey in order to discuss this, as I feel that it is a far more important of a topic than anything I might have to say about the game itself. Between the Washington Post's review of Uncharted 4, Jim Sterling's review of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and now IGN with Prey, I'm seeing a troubling trend forming in the regards to reviews of AAA titles that don't toe the line of what people want or expect them to be. IGN's low review score was based upon a save file annihilating bug that was by no means commonplace. Indeed, the game has run exceptionally well for me and was seemingly free of the bugs and flaws that now traditionally typify the standards of a AAA release, and I actually find the game to be rather good. Not exceptional or mind-blowing, but good. But does the simple fact that I myself or any other number of critics out there find the game to be fairly good somehow invalidate the review provided by IGN? No, most certainly not. Granted, IGN itself is about as trustworthy as a politician up for re-election, but a review score not matching up with anyone else's is hardly enough to classify it as being without merit. You see, the mere fact that this is somehow an issue at all speaks extremely poorly of the games industry in general and shows a clear and slightly disturbing reliance upon Metacritic and the review score numbers in general. It seems that the wider gaming public still believes that these numbers actually mean something, when in fact, they are really every bit as meaningless as an asset flipper calling themselves a games developer. Review scores are an arbitrary number based entirely upon a reviewer's extremely subjective opinion and perception of what a good game is. It is most certainly not an objective measure of the game's quality, as so many seem to believe and have come to rely upon. This misperception has given birth to sites like Metacritic and actually do a disservice to consumers as a whole, whereas in actuality the purpose of a numerical value is nothing more than a way of providing a psychologically satisfying ranking system outside of the actual review itself. We've seen this in countless other scenarios where the base 10 system is used, such as top 10 lists. It's a mere usage of a numerical value that is satisfying to the human primate brain. However, I sort of don't want to continue down that path, as I don't want to turn this into a discussion regarding the human psyche. Well, I do, but just not in that particular way. This reliance on Metacritic scores to determine a game's viability is ultimately damaging to the industry as a whole, and I'm flabbergasted as to why so many gamers do rely on it so heavily. The vast majority of reviewers that Metacritic derives its overall rankings from are typically, they rate a game at least a 5 if it so much as loads properly. They'll rate it a 6 as long as there's playable content within that game. You can thank Game Informer, which was turned into a shilling service for GameStop, for those artificially inflated review scores becoming a norm within the industry. Because of this mindset, more 10 out of 10s have been handed out for games on Metacritic than anyone would ever think imaginable. Many of those for games that are merely passable at best. But of course, that strays back into the realm of subjective opinion, which is really all a reviewer does. We rate a game based upon a predetermined ranking system of our own devising, citing arguments that help to showcase the conclusions we made. But what that of course means is that not every reviewer out there is going to rate a game at an equal level. One might enjoy first-person suspense more than another. One might be having a bad day and got more frustrated with a game than perhaps they otherwise might have. One might have even encountered a seldom-seen game-breaking bug that corrupts your save data. Hell, I would be highly suspicious if two games critics matched each other's opinions each and every time. If they did, then I would simply flat out not trust them. And yet so many people trust Metacritic as a measure of what is a good game, when we have so many reviewers out there that would rank it a 10 out of 10 because it was more entertaining than a piece of refuse within a wet paper bag, or because they'd received compensation from the publisher of some form or another in order to help ensure a positive review. The excesses of the quote-unquote games journalism industry has been well known and documented for years, and it has shown no indication whatsoever of improved journalistic integrity in all that time. To be frank, I was surprised at the IGN review giving the game a 4 out of 10, as was everyone else, but for very different reasons. IGN's journalistic integrity has seemed to be absent for an exceptionally long period of time, and as such, I've never taken anything they've had to say seriously. That was until I found out about this review. This showed that while it might have been a potentially unfair review of the game, and while perhaps a site the size and with the influence of IGN might have at least checked to see if this was a rare or a common issue, at least it showed some personal honesty. It showed that IGN was not merely being paid off for yet another 10 out of 10 so they could serve as little more than the advertising site for games publishers that they've mostly become. I took it as a promising sign of life and a gratifying departure from the corporate shill that the site has been in the past. Granted, I hold no illusion of IGN ever actually changing their spots to stripes, but even an occasional sign of humanity is reassuring. But I've talked for a few minutes on the evils of the Metacritic scoring system and how much I dislike people relying upon it when I know how broken of a system it actually is, but I haven't given any possible scenarios as to how it can be done better or how gamers can garner actual useful information. Well, that's easy. Do away with the numerical scoring at the end of the review entirely. All it is a numerical summation of what was said within the review itself, lacking any of the context. Say I gave an overall 7 out of 10 to Prey. Knowing nothing else, you would expect to think, well, that's a pretty good game. But it tells you actually nothing meaningful. It doesn't tell you about the control scheme, which I might have liked, but you might find maddening. It says nothing of the art style, which I might have slightly disliked, but you might ooh and ah over. Or the core mechanics of the suspense, which, while I might have found it trivial, uninspired, and meaningless, you might agree, or you might take it a different way. Each and every one of those highly subjective aspects are typically discussed within a full review and will provide meaningful information to the consumer to take into consideration prior to their purchase. It is a method very much designed to relay information to the consumer in a way that is designed to help them and be readily understandable. But what's more, it provides meaningful context behind each and every decision, each sticking point that caused issue, aspects both enjoyed and disliked. From there, the reader or reviewer can then decide if that's something that will interest them, again on a subjective level. Making use of a numerical value in such a way strips away all that context from a review and renders it, for all intents and purposes, essentially useless. So I would ask everyone to do themselves and their favorite reviewers a favor. Stop relying so much on the numbers. All they do is to form a disservice to you and don't do near enough to provide actual information on the game or relate the impressions the reviewer might have. Also, don't trust a single reviewer. While I certainly don't object to people trusting me, in fact it's the cornerstone of every critic's credibility, I understand very clearly that what I like might not always match what you like. And if there is something I dislike, there is every chance that it is actually something that you might enjoy. Go out and watch or read reviews from a variety of sources. Not every critic will have the same impression or even cover the same aspects of a game. And that is a good thing. It will allow you to take different viewpoints into consideration and will allow you to make just that much more of an informed decision, which is something that every critic I know holds to be what is most important. And it is worth noting that the most recent patch updated the bug that the IGN reviewer faced, and they have since updated their review. But let me know what you think. Am I way off base here with the review scores, or does what I said actually make sense to you? Let me know down in the comments below, and while you're at it, don't forget to hit those like and share buttons, and if you're new to the channel, please remember to subscribe. Hopefully I'll be able to get back to reviews soon enough myself and be able to showcase some of the games that I've found to enjoy for you all. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and thanks for watching.